Daddy was a fascinating man, an exciting individual, and he kept me on my toes.
His laughter was so infectious that you will find yourself laughing. And that's what everyone remembers him for, his laughter.
He and my brother, the late Shah Mohammed, were very friendly. And he used to help Shah Mohammed with the Mastana Bahar. And he went with Sham all over the country, you know, recruiting artists.
He will enter a room and suddenly it lights up because of his charisma.
Bissoondath Ojah-Maharaj was a government senator during the period 1971 to 1981. He served 2 terms in the Senate.
In 1953, I was contesting the first local government elections in this summer area under executive powers. And during that time, the PNM had to find 2 candidates to fight in Caroni, Shagona seat. And we selected a man called Chunilal Seth. He is dead now. And we selected Pandit Karu Ojah-Maharaj. Pandit Karu Ojah-Maharaj was the father of Bissoondath Ojah-Maharaj. His father and I, we became friends and we visited each other and so on.
My father was a member of the County Council at the time. He contested as an independent, and then after the emergence of the PNM, which he joined very early, he contested as a PNM councillor in the County Council. So we were all involved in serving the community together with him. When Bissoondath had left to go to Britain to study, when he returned, he got involved with my father in community work. And Dr. Williams nominated him as a member of the Senate at that time. So my father influenced all of us in community activities.
He went away to England to study. I was Minister of Foreign Affairs, and whenever I go to London, he used to come to the airport to meet me. So we became very good friends, and he was a humble man, and he was a dynamic kind of fellow.
While he was in London, he hosted most of the ministers who went to London on government's business. And he had hosted Mr. Kamaluddin Mohammed on many occasions, and other ministers also. So he worked on behalf of the nation there, because at that time we did not have a High Commissioner in London. But he was the anchor for the country there at that point in time.
And so when Dr. Williams wanted a senator, to pick a senator of the Hindu faith, he selected Bissoondath Ojah-Maharaj. Young fellow, bright, and he made him leader of the Senate.
Parliamentarians, in a sense, are of 2 types. You have those who hold government office and therefore are in full-time employment, as it were, as government ministers or parliamentary secretaries, and those who do not hold official government positions, who would normally refer to as backbenchers. The backbenchers would be engaged on the days that Parliament is meeting in open session, or on the days when the committees of which they may be members, when those committees are meeting. And because outside of that, the backbencher would have their own private job. He was a senator and a backbencher. and served on a number of committees, and therefore would have been engaged in work of the committees when those committees were actually functioning.
When he was nominated in the Senate, he became the leader of the Senate for the PNM in the House. And at that time, I was leader of the House in the lower house. And we had to liaise closely on the agenda and so on. And we used to meet every week to discuss it and to discuss strategies and so on. They asked him to look into agriculture on behalf of the government while he was in the Senate. And he used to look after the interests of agriculture and speak on agriculture and so on.
He knew rural Trinidad extremely well from his service. He was in the Lands Department of Carriage. And I started certainly exploring rural Trinidad with him. I mean, he knew I never knew the countryside and to the extent to which he knew it. And almost every Sunday we would drive through various parts of the country. And that is how I began getting a sense not only of the physical landscape, but the people who inhabited it.
And he would actually be taking drives. I would be sitting in the car with him and going through the sugarcane fields with him to ensure that he would ensure that this is the piece of land that I am going to actually, from agriculture to urban dwelling. That's what we looked at.
He more or less served as one of the whips in the Senate to sort of garner the votes, keep people on track, etc., that sort of thing. He served on a number of the Senate committees, the Regulations Committee, the Privileges Committee, the Public Accounts Committee. The Regulations Committee, which is what sets the rules and regulations for the functioning of the Senate in that case, and there's a counterpart committee in the House of Representatives. Members coming before the Senate for examination, the different government departments, etc. He would have been one of the persons involved in that sort of legislative oversight of the functioning of government ministries. Public Accounts Committee, it examines the government departments, the permanent secretaries and staff. The permanent secretary, who is the accounting officer for a ministry, they appear before these committees and give an accounting of how they spent public funds for the period being examined. And he served on that committee, and therefore would have been one of the members of the Senate engaged in examining officials of the various ministries to determine how they spend public funds allocated to them. Privileges Committee, really, I mean, members of Parliament have tremendous privileges, but they are not privileges, they are privileges and ought not to be abused. And therefore, anybody who is accused of abusing the privileges or misleading the House or any such thing can be brought before the Privileges Committee, where the position is examined, and if not found to be correct, well, the person is exonerated, and if the person is found in breach, then the Parliament determines what the sanctions will be. He was a member of that committee.
He would have moved the bill for the incorporation of the National Parent Teachers Association. And he utilized his position in Senate and with the government to assist a number of voluntary community organizations.
These included the incorporation in 1972 of the San Fernando Arts Council, the San Fernando Lions Club, and the National Council of Indian Music and Drama. He was also a member of the Select Committee with regard to the Interreligious Organization Bill of 1973, and a member of the Joint Select Committee with regard to the reduction of the voting age and the age of legal majority of 1972.
He was a charter member of the Lions Club of Valsine, charter being one of the founding members of the Lions Club of Valsine. And he was very instrumental in getting our club incorporated. At that time, he was a senator. He used his influence in Parliament to ensure that we were incorporated. And that helped us to access funds and to do various projects and to be recognized as a charitable institution.
The senators, as I said, they don't have constituents as such, but people who have problems for which they need some form of redress would tend to go to anybody who has a link to the ruling party, and as a government senator, he would have been perceived as somebody who had entree to those who can make the decisions. So that is an experience that lots of senators now, some took it more seriously than others. He was one of those who took that as a serious responsibility.
We lived on the compound of Carney, and we had this green bench outside, just on the lawn, and people would come. And there was like a gazebo there, and people would come every weekend to see him, sometimes on mornings, and to see him and seek whatever advice or whatever they wanted.
Someone sent a card and a letter in the mail thanking my mom and giving mommy her strength to move on at that point in time, and blessing him because he was instrumental in giving the sugarcane farmers at that time their first home, allowing them to move out of barracks and building their homes in a more modern manner. And that individual was so grateful to my father. She said he actually gave her her first house, and she remembered he would be coming to their homes after to make sure things were okay. Things okay like drainage, ensuring lighting was there. That he just did not get the house and just say, okay, this is for you. He ensured that the family was happy. And that's how that avenue came about, because then it actually went to the total community in Waterloo.
He was a genuine person, a very genuine person. And he had great sympathy and a natural affinity for the concerns of what we call the underdog, the small man.
But I think the family as a whole, they're a community-based family. And I suppose the traits are there. And Siobhan will be growing up at a time in Caroni, and she would recall the days every weekend. Our house always have people coming for. She would remember him, people sitting on that bench waiting to see him on a Saturday and a Sunday. So I suppose those things would have influenced her life. And as she grows older, it has also inculcated into her as well.
Everyone says I'm just like him, so I suppose we both have strong personalities. For example, if I'm leaving a job and going to a new job, he would then say, why are you doing that? And it would just be a pleasure to get accepted to this new job and prove to Daddy how successful I can be.
Siobhan is the only girl, and of course he spoiled her a lot. She was really his eyeball, and sometimes I think she never could understand him because she been so much like her dad, really. So
I'm everything of Daddy except I'm female.
Growing up as he did from Las Lomas, a lot of relatively poor people lived in those areas. He understood that kind of thing. And this is one of the reasons why he spent so much of his time trying to help people. But then on the other hand, he was a great community man. He belonged to the Valsayn Lions Club. He served as its president. They did a lot of good work among, the indigent and that sort of thing.
In the club, he had, on many, many occasions, he would go out of his way to try to provide some relief and comfort to people who had no homes or people who had no food or clothing. We would go and distribute hampers and see in what way we could help the unfortunate and needy people in the community, in any community.
I think he was also president of the Valsayn Residents Association. So, he has been a community person. So that's why I say the politics and the social work, and which is in the tradition of his father, and and the community activity all tended to blend it together into a seamless oneness.
we were married in June of 1966. So we were married for almost 43 years. He passed away in March, the 4th of March, the 5th really. It would have been early in the morning, and on June the 5th would have made us 43 years of marriage. His death was really sudden, and it was really traumatic for me because I was just there at his side and he passed away. Very sudden.
The night when he died, it was the night that the election was taking place between Mrs. Clinton and Obama. And I went to Aranguez to purchase some things in a restaurant, and I met him there. And he bought lamb, and I bought lamb, and we bid both of us bid farewell, and he left. In the night when he went home, he was asleep, and then he got up with a slight pain and told his wife he wasn't feeling well. And she went to sleep listening to the Obama. And when she got up in the morning, Ojah-Maharaj was dead. Poor fellow.
That evening that he took in and and we never got a chance to speak again. So, I might have been one of the last persons. I don't know if he called anybody else after that. I may well have been one of the last persons he spoke with.
I believe he served our country very well, our nation very well. He was very proud when we became an independent nation. He played a significant role with our nation as a member of the Commonwealth. He played a significant role in the Commonwealth Parliamentary Association, a most significant role in the party and in the parliament.
He would try to make ideas and suggestions that would embody the development of Lionism in Trinidad, all the Lions clubs.
In my heart would have been his goodness, his compassion for people, his love for people. That I think is something that has always been with him, and I think maybe he has come from a family like that. But that is something I would always cherish about him. He cared for people, and he was for country and the people. He served his country with a lot of compassion and care and love, and I think that is important for any person to be. He was very patriotic.